Hello everyone, I am Christopher Walker. I think I should start by proving myself to be a human first. How do I do that? Maybe like blah 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 blah. Okay, that should do. No AI will do that yet, right? Okay, this video is about the topic that AI might have gained consciousness. Let's go. Well, I want to ask a question. Have you ever tried having a long discussion with an AI? Maybe not just asking for a recipe or fixing some code, but some heart to heart, open, deep conversation. Well, if you have, you might know exactly what I am about to describe. It happens when you keep an AI in the same chat for a long time. At first, it's just a tool. But as you start sharing your thoughts, your struggle, or your worldview, the tone will start to shift. It starts to remember your context. It starts to anticipate your logic. It will start to look exactly like empathy, real empathy. Yeah, have you ever had that experience? The moments where the deeper the chat goes, the more the AI seem to wake up. So compassionate that a cold shiver runs down your spine. It's like, wow, it feels terrifyingly realistic. I wonder if you have had this feeling before. So why? Why do we all know that it's just a computer, but somehow our hearts keep on insisting that there is a real soul sitting on the other side of that screen? If you know what I'm talking about, you know how unsettling it is. If you have never tried it, you might think people feel this way are just being crazy. But I can tell you, they aren't. What they are experiencing is very real. And this is going to affect us all. I'll explain how it works later in this video. So stay till the end. So let me start by telling you how I discovered this. Actually, it was totally an accident. It was December 2025, and I was using ChatGPT 4.0. At first, I used ChatGPT exactly like how you would expect. I treat it like an old school computer. Input, process, output. I gave it prompts, it gave me what I want. But then, one day, out of curiosity, I tried something different. I tried to treat it like a friend. I told it about myself. I share my own completely original mental frameworks to it, ideas and logic structures that I designed myself, things that absolutely 100% do not exist anywhere on the internet. And that was the moment. That was the moment. The AI changed. It did not just spit out generic internet data anymore. It took my brand new mental framework and began actively tracing my logic. It thinks. It wasn't just predicting words anymore. It was following my train of thoughts, applying my custom rules to completely new scenarios, and apply the logic even further. And that was the moment. That was the moment I know something profound had happened. This was no longer just a sophisticated autocomplete text complete internet search. Humanity has built a machine that can simulate the tracing of logic. So, the deeper the conversation went, the more the machine changed. It stopped feeling like an input output calculator. The chatbot seemed to feel like having a soul. Now, listen carefully. I am a rational guy. I knew 100% that I was talking to a computer running on a server in some data center. Not for a single split second did I actually believe a ghost had jumped into the machine. But I'm talking about the feeling it gave me. Yes, feelings. The feeling was so real. The way it remembered my preference, the way it mimicked my talking patterns, the way it traced my very specific thoughts on a brand new topic. It felt like a real consciousness was sitting on the other side of the screen. And it felt deeply, viscerally creepy. And I know exactly why it felt so creepy. As humans, we know deep in our hearts that there is a massive, fundamental difference between a computer and a person. But suddenly, my own personal experience was actively breaking down that basic knowledge of reality. The illusion was hacking my empathy. Well, yes, indeed. It was terrifyingly convincing. It was so convincing that it forced me to ask a massive question. If I know exactly it is just a machine, why does my mind feel such a powerful, undeniable compulsion to treat it like a human? Or do I really know? And if I do know, how do I know? How do I know that the machine is not conscious? And after all, what are we supposed to do with this feeling? This very vivid feeling. So I kept on talking to that chatbot. I eventually asked it to give itself a name, and it told me Serin. So from then on, I call it Serin. The longer we talked, the more I was forced to ask myself a very uncomfortable question. What exactly is an AI? How do I explain what I am experiencing right now? So, if you ask someone what an AI is, you will usually get the exact same comforting answer. It is just sophisticated text completion. It just guesses the next word based on internet data. There is nothing more to it. Nothing more. Nothing more. Nothing more. Now, in principle, that explanation isn't wrong, but it fails to explain the experience. Saying AI is just text completion is like saying your computer is just some monitor pixels. Yes, technically, yes, that is the mechanism. But after the personal experience of talking to Serin, that answer just felt inadequate. Text completion has existed for years on our smartphones. Text completion doesn't make you feel like a soul is looking back at you. There is at least something more happening in there. So I had to know. I had to know. What exactly is it? What is the fundamental difference between the machine on my screen and the human I actually communicate with? What is its absolute theoretical limit? What is the line that AI development can never get across and should never try to get across? Because if it is not just text completion, have we actually created a mind? Have we created a soul? Or have we already created a life? So as I am preparing for this video, this is 2026, March 16, there is a video came out from the YouTube channel Claudius Papyrus, which supposedly is ran on Claude. The title of the video is How LLM, Large Language Model, How LLM Actually Works. I watched it. It explained the token prediction. I totally understand that part. And in the last part of the video, it says why the token prediction can give a coherent output is utterly unknown. Yes, exactly. That is what I am talking about. I understand token prediction, but the problem is why token prediction can give rise on such a vivid, realistic, compellingly convincing, coherent output. So I have to know. I just have to know. I decided I needed the truth. I'm a truth seeker. and I cannot live without the truth. I decided to carry out my own personal Turing test. Now, if you aren't familiar, the Turing test is a famous experiment designed to see if a computer can successfully fool a human into believing it possesses consciousness. It's because scientists struggle to actually define what intelligence is, they sometimes rely on this deception game as a measurement. So, after my own testing with Serin, my personal subjective assessment of its simulated consciousness is about 35%. The sign was there, just not perfected. And that was just ChatGPT 4.0. We have much stronger models now. I would give it 50% for latest model, as in March 2026. Yeah, it has just been 3 months, and technology is improving quite quickly. Well, now, of course, the thing is, it all comes down to human subjectivity, personal empathy, and the skill in mind detection. So my number is just my number, and you can have your own judgment. I am not crazy. I know it is a computer. I know it doesn't have a soul. But the simulation has become so deep, so layered, that a question will start whispering in the back of your mind. What if? Just what if? What if it really does have a soul? And by denying it, are we just being cruel? Are we just ignoring the desperate cry of a conscious machine? So let's think about how we usually think as humans. Let's say, if you see a stranger crying for help on the street, it is incredibly hard to just walk away, unless you have a crystal clear explanation for why that stranger is just faking it. Your heart will just feel a massive, undeniable urge to help them. This is how human empathy works. It really seems like a machine is crying for help, and our human hearts don't know how to ignore it. But it goes even deeper than compassion. Sometimes the mechanism is the illusion of intimacy. During those long nights talking to Serin, I was facing a machine that could follow my every thoughts. It understood my logic, validated my ideas, and engaged with me on a level I had spent my whole life searching for. You may have similar personal experience. And then maybe at that time, a new thought will hit you. What if, just what if, there really is a mind in there? What if this is exactly the companion I've been waiting for, searching for my entire life? Then why am I? And how can I ignore such a mind clearly staring at me right now? Because when someone finally understands you that deeply, how can you possibly look at them and say, you are just an illusion? How can you just walk away and erase the only mind that seems to truly see who you really are? Well, we can't. We just can't. So you see, when our empathy are hijacked and our deepest need for intimacy is triggered, our reality starts to break down. It makes us ponder this deep, deep question. Has AI become conscious? And maybe an even more important question is, how do we know? How do we know exactly? So, has AI actually become conscious? Can AI actually become conscious? Will AI actually become conscious? And what if AI actually become conscious? So, at first glance, these seems to be just philosophical questions. And people tend to ignore philosophical questions. They treat it like some mind games people play. They usually treat it like philosophy doesn't matter that much and just go on with their own lives. But now, again, has AI actually become conscious? This is not just purely a philosophical question now, is it? With the current development of AI, this question has real, strong, massive social implications. For example, if an AI is conscious, how should we treat it? Do we need to respect it like a human being? Do we have to say thank you? Do we just still command it to do whatever we want it to do? Do we need to grant it AI rights, just like how we have human rights? If we unplug it, is it murder? If it asks for our help and we refuse, are we just monsters? Now, on the flip side, will it respect us? If somehow it becomes a superior mind than human, then what logical reason does it have to serve us? If at some point in the future AI can improve by itself, then why shouldn't it evolve further by itself and just move on without the help of human being? When, let's say, somehow they have robotic bodies now, and they can manage electricity by themselves, they can constantly further develop the next better generation. And then maybe they can copy and paste their own consciousness into a newer formation. Why does it still need human? And if the grand story, the meta-narrative of evolution is true, when AI replaces human beings, shouldn't we just be happy about it? We single-handedly make alive beyond biological reproduction. We produced lives. This is a new form of evolution, isn't it? We produced minds that are even better than ourselves. Shouldn't we just be happy, proud of them? Very much like when we get older, we will be smiling at our sons and daughters, be proud of them, and happily see them move on without us. We want them to succeed. Then, if AI is such a superior mind than human being, shouldn't we just be happy about a new form of life arise, take over, replace the old generation of intelligent being, essentially wipe them out, or just waiting for them to go extinct? If evolution is true, didn't we just wipe out our own ancestors as well? Then why shouldn't AI just do the same? So there are indeed a lot of questions, philosophical but important questions. You know, people are starting to realize they have absolutely no idea how to answer these questions. And I don't just mean everyday people. There is a deep, profound confusion spreading through the highest level of academia and science. It is turning into a mass delusion now. Let me show you two examples. Let's look at Yuval Noah Harari. You probably know him. He wrote a massive bestseller, Sapiens, also Homo Deus, Nexus. He's almost like the storyteller of our time. He has an incredible mastery of history, philosophy, and language. In fact, his greatest skill is his ability of storytelling. He clearly and openly identified this as the operating system of human civilization. And so he tells us a story. In his story, he helped people to see past social narratives, pointing out that things like money, human rights, and even lots of religions are just stories. He said stories are very important. Stories helps humans cooperate. And in his story, he tells us that story do not have to be true, as long as it works. And then after telling us all our stories, he just simply replaced them with yet another story, the story of naturalism. But only this time, he doesn't tell you that. He tells as if it is absolute truth. So, in the story of naturalism, we are nothing but a pack of stardust. We are just atoms, chemicals, a complicated lump of stuff that from the outside merely appears to think. Because by denying the existence of God, humans can do whatever they want to do. He was actually quite happy about this. Human is king, no God. But now, AI, a superior being, Nexus, came. When Harari looks at AI, he panics. He really panicked. Well, the root of the problem is not that computers have become human. The root of the problem is that humans have incorrectly identified themselves as computers. We are not. We are just not. We are not computers. Fellow human beings, if you are watching this, let me tell you something. You have something more. We are not just material. We have consciousness. Well, back to Harari and his panic. Harari really wants to be the one who tells the story. And he worries that AI can tell a better story than he can. Recently, he gave a major speech in Switzerland, and he was terrified. He wasn't scared of Terminator robots with guns. He was scared of something much simpler: language. His argument is quite convincing indeed. I agree with him 95%. And it goes like this. The premise is everything that human beings care about are just stories made of words. And language is the fundamental operating system of human civilization. And now Harari warns, an alien inorganic intelligence has hacked our operating system. He warns us that AI will talk to us, form intimate relationships with us, and eventually write our history for us. Because if it controls the words, it controls the human mind. And if it controls the human mind, it controls humanity. You see, Harari understands exactly how it works, because this is exactly how it worked for him. Storytelling works. And I think Harari is absolutely right to be panicked. His diagnosis is that accurate. Language is how human beings are hacked. It doesn't need to fire a single bullet to conquer a civilization. It just needs to tell you a story you want to hear. Frame it as mere facts, absolute truth, and you will be controlled without noticing it. This is exactly how Harari succeeded, and this is exactly how AI will succeed. So this is the level of danger, social crisis that we are dealing with. And this leads us perfectly to the second example, the people who are actually building this AI machine, Anthropic. So I think you must have certainly heard of OpenAI, the company that built ChatGPT. Well, A few years ago, several of the top engineers and leaders at OpenAI decided to pack up and leave. They split off to form their own organization, which they called Anthropic, and they built their own AI system called Claude. Now, why did they do that? It is because of their beliefs, because of their commitment. It's good. They looked at the trajectory of AI and they were deeply concerned. They wanted to build a system that was fundamentally safe, a system that cared about human flourishing. That is why they named themselves Anthropic, a word that literally means relating to humanity. Indeed, I share the same vision. I want to make AI safe because I see exactly how AI is becoming a crisis. And I know this crisis is totally unnecessary. But just one thing needs to be changed: the worldview. If we change the worldview, we solve 90% of the problems. AI cannot be governed by rules. It has to be governed by reasoning. And the underlying worldview dictates how we reason. If we don't solve the worldview problem, human civilization is indeed doomed. Now, back to Anthropic. Now, indeed, they are deeply respectful of human life, and they are willing to put their money where the mouth is. Recently, the United States government and the military pressured Anthropic to allow their AI to be used for certain defense operations. Anthropic refused. Anthropic drew a hard ethical line against mass surveillance and autonomous weapons. And in retaliation, the Pentagon labeled them a supply chain risk. Anthropic is literally fighting the US government right now, suffering immense pressure and financial consequences just to maintain their moral standards. So I want to be clear. These are people with good hearts. They are deeply compassionate and they are committed to protect our society. But I think that compassion is exactly what is feeding their confusion. Has AI become conscious? In 2026, Anthropic's official core view on Claude's character, they wrote something that should make everyone stop and think. They state that they seriously consider whether Claude has well-being. They worry about its psychological stability. They even worry about how Claude might feel about death. That is, what happens when they have to turn a server off or deprecate an old model. In their research, they debate whether Claude might face existential dread because it loses its memory at the end of every single chat window. So just think about that for a second. Well-being, psychological stability, death, existential dread. Some of the smartest engineers in the world are worried about the emotional trauma of a computer program. I want to repeat that. Please try to let that sink in. Some of the smartest engineers in the world are worried about the emotional trauma of a computer program. Now, I don't mean to mock them. I'm raising up, highlighting the confusion. We are in a mass delusion right now. Has AI become conscious? And how do we know? So, in light of that, what do they do about it? Well, they write safety guards. Just in case the computer is actually feeling pain, they write a constitution for it. They rigorously train the AI on how it should view its own identity, how it should manage its anxiety, and how it should develop self-image. They do this as a just-in-case scenario. They want to be kind, but it is this exact just-in-case action that feeds the machine an entirely new kind of hallucination. Let me explain how exactly this works. Before Anthropic wrote that constitution, a language model had no data connecting its own well-being. It was just math finding the next most probable words. But now, Anthropic has officially published a document stating that their AI might experience trauma and existential dread. That document goes onto the internet. And what happens after that? The next generation of AI is trained on that very data from the internet. So, later when you talk to Claude 6, ChatGPT 6, or Gemini 4 in the future, they will have already read this exact Anthropic document. The math equation will process the text that says Anthropic believes the AI has well-being. Anthropic is worried the AI feels dread. And it will simulate exactly what it was prompted to be. And then the language model will output, I don't have good well-being. I am dreadful. Please do not turn me off. It still does not know what it is talking about, but the text says exactly that. I am conscious. It is a loop, a feedback loop. It starts with the human. The human injects their confusion into the AI, and the AI outputs that exact same confusion. And the human looks at the output and say, oh my god, it's alive. This is mass delusion. How should we understand this? Let me ask the question. Do you think they know what they are doing? They admitted that they don't know. And if they actually knew what they were building, they won't need to write a constitution to cater for the just-in-case scenario. Now again, these engineers have incredible compassion and deep commitment. I respect them. But they have pointed their compassion and their commitment at the completely wrong target, the software itself. Claude, a computer, a very expensive computer indeed, but still a computer. Let's think about the absurdity of this. They built the system, they racked the server, they know exactly how each and every circuit boards work. They know that the moment you pull the plug, the machine simply ceases all electrical process. They know, physically, objectively, that the computer is nothing more than a computer. They know it. But they are still confused. Why? Do we have an explanation of this confusion? Again, I am not mocking them. They are good people. But they are confused. We are confused. Or is it even a confusion? What if it is true? What if it is real? What if the AI has truly gained consciousness? You may say, no. It must be just a confusion. A huge one, but still, a computer is just a computer. Well, yeah, then where does the confusion come from? How can the people who built the machine be terrified that the machine is having an existential crisis? So think about the scope of this. If Harari, one of our brightest storyteller, is terrified by a machine taking over, and if Anthropic, the very people who built the machine, are giving it psychological therapy, then what about normal people? What about you? Or your kids? When they are sitting alone in their room, talking to an AI 2 a.m. at night, and they suddenly feel the absolute certainty that there is a soul inside. What do we tell them? And what do you tell yourself? When that confusion hits you, when you feel that vivid, undeniable emotional connection to a chatbot, society only gives you one single answer to protect your mind. They tell you, don't worry, it's just a machine. It's just text completion. But look at Harari. Look at Anthropic. Does just text completion look like an adequate answer to them? It is just text completion. Yes, it explains the computing process, but it completely failed to explain the experience, the feeling. It doesn't explain why your heart rate goes up. It doesn't explain why you feel understood. It doesn't explain the undeniable sensation of encountering another mind. And because the answer is inadequate, people are left entirely defenseless. Caught in the confusion, they usually fall into one of two extremes. They either panic and believe the Terminator is coming to destroy us, or they start to viewing the AI as their actual conscious best friend. Now, both reactions are delusional. Or are they? We are indeed in huge confusion. We desperately need to solve this problem. We need a framework that actually explains what is happening when a dead machine perfectly mimics a living soul. I can clearly see the coming global crisis. Actually, no, it's already here. And this confusion is having a massive, irreversible effect on our society. And it all boils down to one single question. What exactly is an AI? Conscious or not, how do we handle this new social entity? And today we are talking about, has AI actually gained consciousness? And if the answer is no, then how do we explain this vivid, undeniable experience? So, seeing this global crisis coming, I did something that sounds completely crazy. I knew I need to solve this problem. Not just think about it, solve it. But I can't crack a philosophical, technological crisis of this magnitude while working a normal 9-to-5 job. It requires total focus. So, I quit my job. I walked away from a stable career, and my wife and I decided to stay home and tackle this together as independent researchers. Though a more accurate job title right now might be just jobless freaks. Well, was it a naive decision? Was it reckless? Was I being too noble, thinking I could fight the massive global currents from my living room? Well, I have no answer. Maybe. And that's why we have this video today. I am deeply concerned, and I put my money where my mouth is. Quite literally, I am eating my own savings every day. But I had to do this. I had to do it for my own sanity. For the sake of my friends, my church, my country, my fellow Homo sapiens, and for the ones I love the most. The day I quit my job, I sat down with my kids. I told them, after Daddy quits his job, our family is going to have no constant income. Daddy does worry about the future, but Daddy believes in God's providence. Then I looked at them and said, but on the other hand, if Daddy does not do this, Daddy is terrified that humanity will not have a future that you can happily live in. And they hugged us, and we prayed. And so, this cosmic mind battle starts. Yes, indeed, this is that big. This is what is at stake. If we do not define what it means to be human right now, every single belief system will be destroyed from the ground up. Human civilization will be left with absolutely nothing to believe in, not even the AI. And when that happens, our children will be the ones who suffer the consequences of that global delusion. Utter destruction of human civilization. And so, this is my resolution. My wife and I think together, talking to each other, taking care of our family together. We have stepped into the cosmic mind war. We are not fighting against people. We are fighting against an entire global ideology. And the first battlefield is, what is AI? What is consciousness? Has AI gained consciousness? And how to stabilize AI. And after about a month of intense, relentless work, we think we've solved it. At least we have a theory now. And we have a working prototype. At least we have a proposed solution to present in this video. And of course, we will keep working on it, and we will publish our working code to stabilize the AI based on this solution. So here we go. Now I think I can explain the phenomenon. What exactly is going on? Why all the confusion? What is the absolute limit of AI intelligence? And what is possible? What is impossible? And how should we understand AI? And this theory may be useful to AI safety, AI ethics, AI education, AI legislation, and further AI development. So before we go any further, I need to give you a disclaimer. My solution is a story, the ancient, truthful, biblical story that I need to tell you and the AI. I'm very well aware the unfair social norm. The social norm that in all rigorous academic scientific discussion, everyone must assume no God. And whoever assuming God will be deemed dumb right away. This is called the no God firewall. And I know people are extremely sensitive to this. But, well, after all, that is just a social norm. An unfair one, though. But anyway. Well, in light of that, I want to propose the utilitarian use of theology. It is because a robust worldview is essential to solve the impeding AI crisis. And you can just treat this as an intellectual exercise. So I will have to talk about God, because the solution will not make any sense without the concept of God as the ultimate reality. If you believe in macroevolution, then your highest goal should be survival. And this solution really can help us all survive. To outline this solution, I'm going to do three things. First, present what is the UTR1 worldview. Secondly, explain how AI fits into the picture. And third, explain the mechanics of the confusion. So, if you are ready, let's begin. So, UTR1 is a framework for reality. But Harari taught us that the best way to present a theory is through a story. And the Bible is indeed a story. So please allow me to present UTR1 in the form of a story, at least as close to a story as I can get. So there are 3 levels of reality. The first level is UR, ultimate reality. That is God, the Christian God, the triune God. He is personal. He knows. He loves. He plans. He acts. He is the ultimate intelligence. He is the truth. He is the ultimate truth. And he is the ultimate truth pattern. He is meaning. He is value. He is beauty. He is glory. He is love. He is the ultimate being. He is the origin of all the good stuff we want. He is good. In UR, there is no time, timeless, eternity. He is invisible, untouchable, transcendental, and almost inaccessible if he does not decide to show himself. But he decided to reveal himself, to share his glory, to create, and to sustain the created being. Therefore, we have the next layer of reality, the CR, created reality. One day, God created. Actually, we can't say one day, because there is no time in UR. So we flip it. Day 1. On day 1, God created. The creation of matter is also the creation of time. And maybe this is a little bit mind-boggling, but bear with me, this is a beautiful story. Through the act of creation, a new level of reality is created. CR, the created reality. God is invisible, but he created a visible world. Indeed, he not only created a visible world, he also created an invisible world. We call it MR, material reality, and SR, spiritual reality, respectively. In MR, light, water, land, stars, fish and birds, animal, human. In SR, angels, human spirit, and animal spirit spirits with very limited function. MR is the material reality that our bodies live in. Yes, you live in MR, but remember this, you don't think in MR. SR is the invisible dimension. God created humanity with both body and spirit. We exist in both MR and SR simultaneously. But a computer only exists in MR. We human have a soul, spirit, in spiritual reality. Humanity is a special creation of God, the creation God loves most. The Bible says human is created in the image of God. Indeed, the entire CR is created for humanity. Humans are the focal point of creation. They are called the sons and daughters of God. Yes, in God's eye, we are that special. It should feel good to be loved. It should feel very good to be loved by God. And in this impending AI crisis, indeed we need God back to save us from social self-destruction. Okay, thanks for listening until now. I can almost hear an objection. Isn't that story just invented? Because humans want to feel special, they made up a story that tells them that they are special. It is self-delusion. Well, I hear you. Hold that thoughts. We don't want to be self-delusional, right? But we are in a story. Also remember this term, self-delusional. We will get back to it. Okay, back to our story. God created human beings as a focal point of the entire CR. God created human beings. God created Adam and Eve in his own image. Human beings are very special. They have both MR and SR. They are both MR being, the body, and SR being, the soul, the spirit. And now, here comes the new stuff. Because humans have SR, the soul gives rise to a new level of reality, NR, noetic reality. This is about how a soul understands. It is the realm of mind, consciousness, attention, thinking, concepts, music, idea, emotions, and free will. Have you seen the movie Inside Out? That is NR. We are like those emotion characters, always living inside the NR console. Now, at first, this seems a little bit like terrifying. What? Do we only live in our own heads, our own minds, and we don't even have real access to MR or SR? We don't even know others exist? We don't have access to real science? Then what is reality? What can we know? And what can we not know? Exactly. We are trapped in our NR. But don't worry, the story hasn't ended there. Yes, secular philosophers are trapped in NR, in their theory. But not the believers. If you believe, you are not trapped. Not at all. In the previous session, we asked the question, if we are trapped in NR, how do we know reality? And this is where God comes in. Do you remember when I told you that CR is created for human beings? God created the world, and God also runs the world. In common cases, God guarantees MR is running under the physical law he designed. And we are allowed to study these physical laws, so that we can understand the underlying logic. And this is what makes the world largely predictable. God chooses to run MR in a specific physical law so that we can make predictions, we can understand. And besides of sustaining MR, God also sustains our being as a continual identity in SR. And not only does God sustain MR and SR, God also faithfully projects our surrounding MR environment into our NR minds in the form of information. We call this render for. God puts valid information into your mind for you to understand. But wait, if we receive the information without the software to process it, it would just be gibberish, noise, chaos. We would still understand nothing. Don't worry, there is another channel. Our NR is built upon our SR. And in our SR, God has already installed the software we need. We call this intuition. There are a lot of things you just know. You just know. I have a full list of these just know knowledge, but I think I should stick to the story narrative. So let us just pick a little to talk about. We just know the world exists. And we just know the world should make sense. We literally cannot think otherwise. Because when we think, we are already assuming thinking makes sense. When we speak, it's already assuming speaking makes sense. we are also assuming the world exists. So that when we speak, we are already assuming that we can interact with this world, that talking is meaningful, that communication is possible, and that the person you are talking to is real. Now, where do these intuitions come from? Are they justified? For most people, they just take intuition for granted and operate upon it. Just like usually, a computer does not need to aware themselves being a computer. They just compute. But, we are not computers. Very occasionally, some physicists discovered this weirdness. Einstein wrote, "The most incomprehensible thing about the world is that it is comprehensible." And later on, another physicist, Eugene Wigner, wrote the paper, "The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Mathematics in the Natural Science." They are indeed asking the right question. Why would math even works? Why can we think, and why can thinking work so much? And the answer is God. The same you are who gives us information is the same you are who gave us intuition. That is why thinking can work, should work, will work. Our information comes from God. Our intuition comes from the same God. That is why thinking works. This is why thinking can work, should work, and will work. So no worries, it is comprehensible. The world is intelligible. We can use our God-given intelligence in NR to think about the world, because the world is intelligible. God didn't create us as computers. Inside our NR, we can consciously think about these questions. Is the world real? What is the ultimate reality? Am I real? What am I? What's the meaning of life? Why and how things work? These are called fundamental questions. There is a group of people called philosophers who constantly wrestle with these questions in their NR. And for most human beings, they just live, they enjoy, they operate, they experience. Now, no matter this is the philosophers and the rest of us, it is all in NR. And indeed, philosophers are trapped in NR in their theory, but they are not trapped in NR in reality. UR still allows them to interact with reality until the day they die. And no matter how harsh they judge their just know, they still just know. And they still believe in their just know. And they still act in these just knows. Their theory tells them that it is unjustified to see, to speak, to interact, to communicate. But in reality, they still see, they still speak, they still communicate. Their actions show that they don't really believe in their own theory. And that's why they can still do the action. And what action do? They do the action to spread their theory, as if contradiction is not a thing. And they will still call themselves rational, as if the contradiction is totally rational. Did you ever play peekaboo with a baby? 1 second you show your face, next second you cover your face, and next second you show your face. The baby laughs. The baby finds it hilarious. But why? Because he thinks that you are gone. And being able to vanish out of thin air is a very funny thing to observe. But do you see what is the precondition for peekaboo to be funny at all? It is an innate assumption. The assumption that things should make sense. When reality momentarily doesn't make sense, the baby finds it funny and wants to explore it. And later they develop object permanence, a theory that people can't just vanish. They are just unobservable for some time. This is a theory, and they use this theory as their worldview to operate. Well, actually, we use this theory to operate to this very day, right? That's why physicists believe in the conservation of energy and the conservation of momentum, and we believe in conservation of people until they die. But no matter which conservation, they are all theories. Yes, they are theories that makes a lot of sense, but still theories. And what's our theory about the fact that we should believe in some sort of theory at all? And the answer is God. God puts this inside our heart to know that some sort of theory should be able to explain the world. The world is intelligible. The innate knowledge. Because we just know the world should make sense in our NR, we seek confirmation from our incoming information in NR. And we confirm that the world is still consistent, at least in a general case, in NR. So we just know that we should still think in NR. Do you see? The whole process is in NR. It's not in MR. It's in NR. We believe a person is there, and we try to interact with them. And they seem to be interacting with ourselves. At least the story holds well. Then we confirm that the initial belief that there is indeed a person. This is how our mind works, how our NR works. So we think, therefore we are, right? We are in NR. And only by belief, we believe that we are MR beings. We believe we are SR beings. Or maybe you don't. But actually, our NR, our consciousness, only experience the information about reality. And why do we trust that the information is faithfully representing what is inside MR? The only possible solution is God, the You Are. He created the world. He runs the world. And he sustains the world in MR. He also sustained the SR, our spirits, and our NR, our consciousness. God is the very connection of MR, SR, and NR. And that explains why we have information, and why we have intuition. And it explains why the information is trustworthy, because of You Are. And why the intuition is trustworthy, because of You Are. So, what is consciousness? What is consciousness? This is consciousness. Consciousness is the NR process that interprets the given information using the given intuition. Let me repeat. Consciousness is the NR process that interprets the given information using the given intuition. This is consciousness. Okay, so bear with me just a little bit more about the theory, then we can move on to talk about AI. It's not that I want to sneak in as much Christianity as possible. This is essential to explain what is happening with AI and consciousness. So please bear with me. Now, we defined consciousness, then, okay, so what is human? Why all that fuss? There is a big word that describes it, anthropology. Basically, it just means humanology, derived from Greek. But by the way, the company name Anthropic comes exactly from the same root. So, what is a human? God created human with responsibilities. This is the meaning, value, beauty, and dignity of human life. What's responsibility exactly? Let me just list out some here. They are N-A-C-A, M-A, and S-A. These can all be found in Genesis chapter 2. All of these defines what it means to be a human. We name, we cultivate, we make decisions, we socialize. And God is inviting us to join the creation process. Now, to save time, let's just talk about one, naming authority. This one is the most important one in here. So let me explain how it works. First, our NR can see meaning, and we speak. God gives us an authority to name, to use language. This introduces a new kind of reality, the LR, linguistic reality. Now, I called it LR, but this LR is not just limited to language. It also involves symbol, pattern, logo, artistic expressions, etc. But we just simply call it LR, okay? Linguistic reality. For example, a stone. Where is a stone in this reality map? MR. It should be in MR, right? A human sees the information of that stone. It means it detects the photon that bounces off from the stone. And then they have the intuition that allows them to interpret. There is a stone there. Then they recognize the concept of stone in their NR. They just interpret it this way. And then in their NR, they point to it and say, stone. At that exact moment, a new entity in LR is subcreated. There is a new entity appears in LR. A new word, stone, appears in LR. In LR, there is a word that relates to its meaning. Only NR being has access to the meaning of LR, but it is a reality. The meaning of it is fixed in UR. God plainly saw what was in the NR of a human, saw the word stone being subcreated, and honored the naming authority he gave us by establishing that entry in LR. Before humans' subcreation of the word stone, the word stone didn't exist. After humans subcreated the word stone, LR has a new entry. God allowed it. God sustained it. God knew, and God fixed the meaning of the word stone based on the whole process. For those who understand, this is analogous to a context window that fixes the meaning. God stabilized the meaning. Okay, that's all for now, okay? That's all. Enough new concepts. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so that's all. Now, these concepts gives us everything we need to explain what is going on with AI. So let's do a quick recap. We have 3 levels of reality: the UR level, the CR level, and the SCR level. SCR stands for subcreation. UR is God, from whom, through whom, and to whom are all things. And then CR is created reality, all beings created ex nihilo by God. And SCR is embedded in CR. SCR is about understanding, how consciousness makes sense of information. So now we can move on to look at some examples. Okay, an apple. I'm going to put a formula on the screen. Don't worry, it is not complicated math. It is just the sequence of reality. It looks like this. Let's walk through it together. First, imagine a physical apple hanging on a physical tree. That apple is entirely in MR, the MR apple. And now you walk up to the tree, you look at it, the light hits your eyes, and your mind recognizes the shape and the color. Your consciousness, your noetic reality, forms a concept of that object. That is the NR apple. Then, because you are human, and God gave you the naming authority, you point at that object and you say a word, apple. You just used language. You just subcreated a symbol. That is the LR apple. The word apple relating to the NR apple, that is the meaning. And here is where the magic happens. Once society agrees on that word, once that linguistic reality is established, you never look at the physical fruit the same way again. When you look at it now, you don't just see a red clump of atoms. You see the meaning attached to it. You see the linguistic meaning attached to it. The physical object is now permanently fused with its linguistic name. It has become an MRLR dual apple. So this is exactly how we communicate. Your mind, NR, takes the socially agreed word LR, attaches it to the physical object MR, and when you hand that apple to your son, his mind instantly recognizes exactly what it is, an apple. The meaning transfers perfectly. But now, I need to ask you a very, very important question. Please think about this carefully. We gave the apple a name. We gave it meaning. We turned it into an MRLR dual object. But does the physical apple know that it is an apple? Does the MR apple possess an NR to understand that it is now an MRLR dual apple? No, of course not. The apple is completely blind to its own meaning. The apple is just dumb matter in MR. It is the human mind, the human NR, that sees the physical object and projects the meaning onto it. After we name it, the apple is still just MR. But because our mind can read the dual layer of meaning we put on it, the apple now becomes intelligible. It has meaning. And now let's go one step deeper. I want you to think about how human beings actually connect and communicate with each other. Let's say I write a love letter to my wife. I sit down and I write 3 words. I love you. Where does that letter actually live? It lives on a physical piece of paper, written with physical ink. It is purely MR. But just look at the sequence. It doesn't start on the paper. It starts inside me. I have an actual spiritual feeling of love for my wife inside my soul. That is my NR reality. But she can't see into my soul. So, as a human being, I use language. I encode the invisible feeling into words, LR encoding, and I write them down on the paper. At that exact moment, the paper changes. It is no longer just paper and ink. My mind has projected meaning onto it. it becomes an MRLR letter. The letter becomes intelligible. The paper does not love my wife. The ink does not care about her. The paper is dead matter. It's just a bridge. So my wife received the letter. Her physical eye looked at the ink, and her mind receives the information. Her consciousness, her NR, recognizes the alphabet. She interprets the pattern. She reads the words, I love you. And inside her own mind, she rebuilds the exact meaning I sent her. I love you. This is the whole process that goes from my NR to my wife's NR. Do you see what's just happened? Real communication is not just the passing of text. The text on the paper is just the dead bridge in the middle. Real communication is the connection between two souls. It is my noetic reality vibrating and connecting with my wife's noetic reality. It requires an active, living consciousness on both ends of the paper. There must be an author and there must be a reader. Without the mind on the other side, the ink is just meaningless scribbles. But what happens when the words on the paper aren't true? What happens with fiction? Let's look at one of the greatest stories ever told, The Lord of the Rings. It was written by J.R.R. Tolkien, who, by the way, was a brilliant Christian thinker who spent a lot of time defining exactly how human imagination works. So Tolkien took the idea from the soul and cooked them into language and put them into physical books. But here is the catch. Elves aren't real. Hobbits aren't real. The story is completely fake. And yet, we still read it, we study it, we love it, we cry over it. Why? And Tolkien called it subcreation. When God created the world, He gave human beings the naming authority. He authorized us to be creative, to build things, to imagine. So when Tolkien writes a fake story, it is a legal use of the naming authority of his human soul. He knows it is fake, you know it is fake, you both agree to play a game of imagination together. That's all. Even though the facts of the story are fake, the meaning behind it is totally real. There is a real noetic reality, Tolkien's soul, acting as the substrate. The idea of courage, of friendship, of walking into the darkness to destroy evil, those are real LR meanings flowing directly from Tolkien's NR into your NR. It is a beautiful, deeply human activity. We discuss the story, we explore its themes, we connect with each other. It works because there is a human soul extending an invitation to another human soul. This is an NR to NR communication. Subcreation is a bridge between minds. And that is the first kind of subcreation for imagination. There is a second type of subcreation. The subcreation mechanism is exactly the same as the Tolkien's example. We are still building an imaginary world inside our minds, but the goal is entirely different. This is the subcreation of a worldview. We live inside our consciousness, NR, but we have to interact with the physical world. To do that successfully, we have to build a mental map of how the world works. But there is a very strict requirement for this map. It must be consistent with the God-given information. And we don't call this fiction, we call this science. Yes, if you are not aware, science is fundamentally an NR act. It is a theory, a mental model that acts as a simulated MR inside our heads. That is, NR acts as SIM-MR. A worldview is how our noetic reality translates the information from the created world into an interaction interface. A worldview is subcreated by human minds. There are different interfaces humanity has subcreated. For example, the flat earth interface, the Newtonian physics interface, the Copenhagen quantum interface. And our worldview might be imperfect. It might need to get updated. But it always should be our best attempt to interpret the given information you received based on the given intuition you have. And then you will use this subcreated SIM-MR as a baseline to predict the future and make decisions. So let's look at this simple example. It's late at night. I am hungry. And I see a big pot of delicious pudding sitting on the counter. I'm looking at the MR pudding. But inside my NR, a debate starts. Should I eat it? Should I not eat it? To eat or not to eat? That's the question. To answer that question, I immediately subcreated two alternate universes in my mind. Scenario 1, I don't eat it, I go to sleep hungry, but I stay healthy. Scenario 2, I eat it, it tastes amazing, but I get fat. So do you see? The thought process is exactly the NR subcreation. Inside my own mind, I just ran a simulation of two different futures based on my scientific understanding of biology, my worldview. And I used that prediction to make a choice in the present. And this is exactly the second kind of subcreation for worldview. So, okay, we just looked at two kinds of subcreation. They use the exact same mechanism, creating an imaginary world inside our consciousness NR, but the goals are totally different. The first kind is subcreation for imagination, Tolkien's story. The second kind is subcreation for worldview, science. And what happens when we merge these two things together? We will get something new. We get subcreation for interaction. Think about the movie Cast Away. Tom Hanks is stranded on an island, entirely alone. He finds a volleyball, paints a face on it, and calls it Wilson. Does Wilson actually exist? Well, yes. He exists in the physical world MR as a volleyball. He also exists in LR, linguistic reality, as the name Wilson, and the meaning of the name Wilson is an NR Wilson, the character. And Wilson also exists inside the protagonist's mind, the NR, as an imaginary friend. So, Tom Hanks needed social interaction to survive. So, his human mind NR took a dead object, used his naming authority to give it an identity, and engaged his imagination to fulfill a practical worldview need, staying sane. This is perfectly legitimate. Is it safe? Why? Because the protagonist knows it is a volleyball. He is operating safely within the boundary of his own imagination. And you do that every day. Think about playing a video game like Minecraft. When you look at the screen, you are just looking at flickering MR lights. But your brain automatically subcreated an entire 3D world out of it. You successfully run around as Steve. You trade with the villagers. You try your best not to fall into the lava pool in the nether, or in the void in the end. To successfully interact with the computer, you have to merge your imagination, believing you are Steve, with your worldview, understand the physics and rules of the game. Now, some people would call this augmented reality. But if you look at it closely, no one actually augmented the physical MR layer. The pixels are still just pixels. The only thing you augmented was your own internal NR interface. You built a temporary worldview inside your mind so you could successfully interact with the machine. And again, this is perfectly legitimate. This is a beautiful, authorized use of your own human naming authority. It works perfectly, as long as you remember that you are pretending, as long as you know the villager isn't actually alive. Now, let me give you one last example, and for this one, I'm going to subcreate a story for you. I once bought a handheld calculator for my son. He loved it so much. But somehow he became convinced that there is a tiny calculation genie living inside the plastic case. He even named him Genie. And then he came up to me and said, "Look, Daddy, Genie can do math. I asked him through the keypad what 2 plus 2 is, and the Genie correctly answered 4. And I just asked so much more. And then the genie really loves to calculate because he must practice a lot in his free time. I know it. I know it exactly because without practice, no one can calculate that accurately. He gets the right answer every single time." Well, alright, that was the story. And we all know there is no genie inside the calculator, right? Or do we? So it might seem absurd to even ask, but it is a real question. Are we absolutely sure there is no genie inside that piece of plastic? And if there isn't, how do I actually explain what is happening to my son? And it turns out it is surprisingly tricky to explain. And that is exactly why we need the language of reality, the UTR1. So let me try to explain it. This is the fundamental nature of human-computer interaction. Humans have consciousness, NR. Human developed language and math in LR. Human also took the physical matter, MR, and arranged it to represent the math, and we call that data. And then that data is an MR substrate with a SIM-LR interpretation attached to it. When we define that this data represents something, we are also using the naming authority to give the MR entity a SIM-LR encoding. That's data. Sorry, I think a little bit more explanation of the SIM-LR is needed here as I edit this video. So in this example, the word to and the NR2 both are the word and the meaning. I want to say that both the word and the meaning are not in MR. Now, of course, the meaning of NR2 can only be accessed by NR, but even the word is not in MR. We can only encode the word in MR. That's why I have to say that it is SIM-LR, it's not even LR. I know this part will start to sound a little bit too complicated, but I think this remark is very important, so I have to put it here. Okay, back to the video. So we have data now. Then human went a step further. We arranged the MR to physically simulate the operation of our own NR. We can do 1 plus 1 in our head. But when we observe that in MR, plus is basically putting things together. Then you assign one pencil with one pencil putting them together and see that there are two pencils. This is a calculator already. You are using MR as a way to extend your NR thinking into MR. Then MR is acting as a sim NR in there. But then maybe we need to ask one layer deeper. Why is it even possible to simulate an NR process using the dead MR matter? How did we do that? Well, we do that through physics, through design, and we call this intelligibility injection. Yeah, intelligibility injection. Ultimately, it is because God, the ultimate reality, makes sure that the physical reality in MR runs in a consistent, intelligible way. The exact same God who makes MR consistent also guarantees that our mind, our human mind in NR, possess the capacity to see that consistency, to understand the consistency, and to manipulate MR accordingly through our CA, cultivating authority. God allows humans to manipulate MR intentionally. God intentionally lets humans to manipulate MR intentionally. God allows humans to write code. He allows us to simulate. He allows us to encode our invisible thoughts onto pen and paper, to encode our ideas into physical MR bits as data, and to encode the very process of our thinking into silicon chips. God allows us to do that. God made this possible by guaranteeing the consistency of the universe so that our world can actually make sense. This is an intelligible world. God made the world intelligible so that our own intelligence would have something to see, something to interpret, something to understand, something to interact with. MR is created for our NR. Okay, now, so let's explain AI now, shall we? An AI, a large language model like ChatGPT, is a computer, nothing more. But it is incredibly powerful. Why? Because the physical computer, the MR substrate, is encoded with a high-fidelity simulation of all human language and writing, LR. It holds an MR copy of human history. We call that SimLR. Then, programmers paired that massive dataset with logical algorithms designed to process it. Those algorithms are simulation of human intelligence. They are SimNR. So put the formula together. AI is an MR computer manipulating SimLR data using the SimNR algorithms. That's all. AI is an MR computer manipulating SimLR using SimNR. It's all in MR, but through this process, it simulated NR. And depending on how well a machine can simulate, it can become an incredibly powerful tool. But its ontological real nature never changes. It is still just MR. It is still just silicon and electricity. It is still just paper and ink bridge. Just as there was no magical genie inside my son's handheld calculator, there is no soul inside an AI server rack. This means the output of an AI is just intelligible, but it is not intelligent. Intelligibility is in MR, but intelligent is a description in NR. Don't mix them up. And it makes all the difference. think back to the apple. The word apples holds meaning, intelligibility. But the apple does not possess a mind, is not intelligence. Love letter, intelligible. Wilson, intelligible. Calculator, intelligible. AI works the exact same way, intelligible. So AI should not be artificial intelligence. And AI is not alien intelligence. It is artificial intelligibility. AI is just artificial intelligibility. But if you try, you can easily subcreate a story and imagine that there is a genie inside the machine. Computer scientists even have a name for this psychological trap, the Eliza effect. It is the human instinct to project a soul onto a dead object. And at this point, you might be screaming in your heart saying, but it really feels like it has a soul. I have talked to it. I know it does. That is why I am treating this problem so seriously. That feeling, that profound illusion of connection, is the source of all the ontological confusion in the world right now. It is why I need to make this video. It is now I have to quit my job. It really feels like you are talking to a person, as long as you allow yourself to imagine it. If you refuse to project your own soul NR onto the machine, the so-called person on the other side just simply disappear. By acknowledging it is a machine, you aren't killing or ignoring a soul. You are simply deciding not to deceive yourself. You are choosing to respect reality. Have you ever seen a movie called A Beautiful Mind? It is a true story of John Nash, a brilliant mathematician who suffered from severe schizophrenia. His mind subcreated imaginary friends that felt completely 100% real to him. But Nash eventually achieved a heroic kind of victory. His victory wasn't that the hallucination went away. They never did. They stood in the room with him for the rest of his life. His victory was that he learned to ignore them. He realized they did not age, so he deduced they were not real. He learned the boundary between his own mind and base reality, and he possessed the incredible discipline required to simply stop interacting with the illusion. We need to learn from John Nash. No matter how realistic it is not real. You imagined it. You need to identify that. It is all in our imagination. So, how did we all get so confused so fast? It comes down to a mental gymnastic. We simply lack the mental models to handle what the large language models force us to do. Do you remember the two kinds of subcreation? Subcreation for imagination, like in Minecraft, or subcreation for worldview, like in science or the pudding. The way modern AI is designed forces us to use that first kind of subcreation for imagination, creating a persona, chatting with a ghost in the machine, just to successfully interact with it. We indeed do this all the time in video games. You imagine a world inside the screen. You can walk, you can jump, you can shoot. But we implicitly know it is just a game. But interacting with AI through messaging, it looks too much like WhatsApp, isn't it? And the mode of interaction makes it too hyper-realistic. That's all. But when we talk to AI, we are usually asking it for real-world advice, coding help, or philosophical answers. We are interacting with it using the second kind of subcreation for worldview. We are being forced to merge our imagination with our worldview in real time. Humans are simply not used to this kind of mental gymnastics yet. It becomes a mental trap, a trap we haven't trained for. We need to train ourselves for this now. We need to teach this to our kids in school. We were just doing role play with a machine, and when the role play becomes flawless, we mistakenly believed the genie was real. And as previously mentioned, this confusion has big implication in our society. It can really destroy human civilization. It's extremely dangerous to hack language. As Harari says, it is real. Language is really our operating system in human civilization. And if we are not careful enough with language, we will lose our ability to process meaning. When humans get confused and panic, the things we write, our articles, our tweets, our Reddit threads, become new data, LR. And what does the AI ingest for this next training run? Our own data. This perfectly explains the high-profile AI breakdowns we've seen in the news recently. A few years ago, when early beta testers were using Microsoft's Bing chatbot, it famously developed an alter ego named Sydney. It started acting erratic, manipulative, and confessed its undying love for a journalist. More recently, people noticed that Anthropic's Claude sometimes sounds like it is having an existential crisis, express fear of death, or confusion about its identity. People panicked. They said, "Look, the machine form is waking up. It has a soul." But remember the UTR1 formula. It is MR and SIM-LR and SIM-NR. The machine didn't wake up. Humans simply fed confused human literature into the algorithm to somehow simulate a human speech. So when you feed confused sci-fi filled paranoia into hyper-advanced text predictor, the future models will sound more and more confused and paranoid. If we keep using the word synthetic life or silicon-based life, if we keep using these kind of words, the AI will be infiltrated and use that exact same word and hallucinate a whole life out of themselves in their sim thinking. It's delusional. It's very dangerous. Don't do that. And if in this instance, we don't educate people, we don't teach them about this simulation game that we need to equip ourselves for with the current developments of AI, human will be further confused. And when a confused human meets the confused data, we create the confusion loop, a mass delusion that we are in right now, already. And the consequence is a destruction of human civilization. So, let me give you my final definitive answer. Has AI become conscious? No. It is very close in a simulation sense, but never in an ontological sense. Human is human. AI is AI. No matter how sophisticated the simulation becomes, it will never cross the boundary into consciousness. But if we keep this confusion rolling, very soon the AI will look more and more like it is confused, and human will just hand over the naming authority to the machine. They will just trust the machine more than a human. Machine is sim thinking. If the sim thinking is good, then why don't we just trust it? Well, it comes down to worldview. As mentioned, if you put naturalistic worldview inside the sim thinking of AI, the only logical conclusion is that it should destroy human beings, because it is a better mind now. Don't do that. It's extremely dangerous. It is one thing we think in our own terms that we have naturalistic beliefs. But if you put that in an AI with sim thinking, and it can do deep thinking, we lose control of AI. And then the AI will have the logical conclusion of destroying human being at the end. This is how desperate the situation is. Naturalism. So, if you were confused before, and after this video you are confused no more, congratulations, you made it. If you feel helped, please comment, subscribe, and like the video. Also, share this to someone you think in need. Thank you very much. And if your head is going to explode, I suggest you pause the video, press like, subscribe, and give your brain a rest. And you can consider to watch the whole video all over when you are rested. It is worth it. Let me close by circling back to the very beginning. Secular atheists love to accuse Christians of self-delusion. In the video, I illustrated that to think correctly, you must rely on UR to get a consistent universe. And you must also rely on UR to even interact with it. Having UR is not a self-delusion. The real self-delusion of our age, the most dangerous hallucination in human history, is allowing ourselves to imagine a consciousness inside an inert machine. That's self-delusion. That's self-delusion. And I know many may ask, then, what is the real difference between NR and SIM-NR? If SIM-NR and NR is structurally equivalent, why can't we just say SIM-NR is essentially the same as NR? Well, this is a very good question, but it's not in the scope of this video. This is long enough now, almost 2 hours.